fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The silence that descended over the scar was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic thumping of the Garzeth's massive leg kicking against the stone as I found the sweet spot behind its ear. "I am hallucinating," Prince Aamon said, his voice flat. He was standing a few feet away, his royal demon armor scuffed and stained with the black ichor of the lesser beasts we'd slaughtered an hour ago. "That is the only explanation. The toxic fumes of the waste have finally rotted my brain." I looked up from the massive creature, currently acting more like an oversized puppy than an apex predator of the infernal wilds. "No hallucinations, Your Highness, just a misunderstanding. He wasn't evil, just hungry, and maybe a little lonely." "It is a Garzeth," Aamon hissed, stepping closer. His boots crunched on the obsidian gravel. His eyes, pools of swirling crimson and gold, narrowed at me. "It eats souls, Liam. It flays the skin from bone for sport. It does not get lonely." "Well, this one does," I muttered, patting the creature's thick, bristly flank. The Garzeth let out a rumbling chuff, its 6 eyes closing in ecstasy as I moved my hand to its belly. The purple mana that had surged between us earlier had settled into a low, humming vibration in my chest. It felt warm, right. The cat Albert sat on a nearby rock, licking a paw with infuriating nonchalance. "The boy has a knack, Prince Stiffneck. Don't be jealous just because the big scary monster likes him better than you." Aamon ignored the cat, his gaze fixed solely on me. It was a look I was becoming dangerously accustomed to, a mix of suspicion, grudging respect, and something darker, hungrier that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. We were supposed to be enemies, or at least unlikely allies of convenience. I was the human wielding power I shouldn't have. He was the exiled prince trying to reclaim a throne that wanted him dead. "Stand up, Liam," Aamon commanded, though the bite was gone from his tone. I gave the Garzeth, I decided to call him Barnaby, one last pat and slowly rose to my feet. The moment I straightened, the world tilted. The rush of adrenaline and the massive expenditure of infernal mana crashed down on me all at once. My knees turned to water. The gray sky of the scar spun violently. "Liam." I didn't hit the ground. Strong arms caught me, hard and unyielding. I blinked, trying to clear the spots from my vision, and found myself pressed against Aamon's chest. He smelled of ozone, crushed spices, and cold steel. It was an intoxicating scent that cut through the sulfur of the wasteland. "Easy," Aamon murmured, his voice rumbling against my ear. His clawed hands gripped my biceps, sharp enough to prick but careful enough not to draw blood. "You foolish human. You channeled enough power to level a city block to pet a dog. Your core is nearly empty." "Worth it," I slurred, my head lolling against his shoulder. My body felt incredibly heavy, but the heat radiating from him was grounding. "He's a good boy." Aamon scoffed, but he didn't let go. In fact, he pulled me closer, taking my weight completely. "You are infuriating. If you die from magical exhaustion, I will resurrect you just to kill you myself." Promise," I stammered, my tongue feeling thick. Aamon looked down at me. For a second, the crimson in his eyes swirled with a golden light. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. The air between us crackled, thicker than the mana storm had been. "We cannot stay here," Aamon said, his voice dropping an octave. "The scavengers will come. We need shelter. Can you walk?" "Think so," I lied. I tried to take a step and stumbled. Aamon sighed, a sound of long-suffering nobility. "Useless." Before I could protest, he swept me up into his arms, bridal style. I gasped, instinctively wrapping an arm around his neck. The metal of his pauldron was cold, but his skin was burning hot. "Albert," Aamon snapped at the cat, "guide the beast. If Liam has truly bonded with it, it will follow. We head for the basalt caves." As Aamon carried me through the jagged terrain, I rested my head against his chest, listening to the slow, powerful beat of his heart. It was steady, strong, and for the first time since I'd fallen into this hellscape, I felt safe. But as my consciousness faded into exhaustion, I felt a tremor run through Aamon's arms, not of weakness, but of tension. He was holding me tighter than necessary. Waking up in hell was usually a terrifying experience involving screaming, fire, or something trying to eat you. This time, however, it was surprisingly cozy. I was warm, incredibly warm. I shifted, groaning as the stiffness in my muscles made itself known. I was lying on something soft, fur. "Barnaby," The massive Garzath was curled into a ball, his breathing a rhythmic heave that acted as a living mattress. But the heat source wasn't just the beast. I was sandwiched, my back was pressed against the thick fur of the Garzath, and my front was pressed against a hard, muscular wall of demon royalty. Prince Aamon was asleep. It was a rare sight. Usually he was pacing, planning, or glaring at the horizon. Now in the dim purple light of the glowing moss on the cave ceiling, he looked younger, less burdened. His dark hair had fallen across his forehead, softening the sharp angles of his face. His eyelashes were long, casting shadows on his high cheekbones. He had one arm thrown over my waist, his hand, claws retracted slightly, resting flat on my lower back. Our legs were tangled together. My heart did a traitorous double tap against my ribs. I knew the stories. Humans and demons didn't mix. We were food or slaves or pests, and princes didn't cuddle with the help. Yet here we were. The undiscovered magic the Academy spoke of, the hybrid power inside me, was the only reason I was still alive, and it was the only reason Aamon hadn't left me in the dust. He needed me. But the way his thumb brushed idly against my spine in his sleep suggested he didn't hate the proximity. Enjoying the view. I jumped, nearly headbutting him. Aamon's eyes were open, crystal clear and sharp. He hadn't been asleep at all. I was just checking to see if you were awake, I stammered, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Aamon didn't move his arm, he didn't pull away, he just watched me, his gaze intense. Your core has stabilized, you recover quickly, unnaturally so. Is that a compliment? It is an observation. He shifted, his knee sliding between mine, creating a friction that sent a jolt of electricity straight to my groin. I held my breath. You wield infernal mana like you were born to it, Liam, but you have no horns, no tail. Your soul reads as human. He lifted his hand from my waist and brought it to my face. The tips of his obsidian claws traced the line of my jaw, dangerously close to the carotid artery. It was a threat and a caress all at once. What are you? He whispered. Just Liam, I whispered back, unable to look away. Just the guy helping you get your throne back. Why? Aamon asked, his thumb brushing my lower lip. The sensation was rough, callous, and incredibly erotic. I have promised you nothing. No gold, no titles. Why fight for a monster? You're not a monster, Aamon, I said, the words slipping out before I could filter them. You're arrogant, prickly, and you have terrible bedside manner, but you're not a monster. Aamon's eyes widened slightly. The gold within the crimson flared. He leaned in, closing the distance between us until his breath ghosted over my lips. The air in the cave grew heavy, charged with static. You are a fool, he murmured, his gaze dropping to my mouth. A dangerous, beautiful fool. My breath hitched. He called me beautiful. From the entrance of the cave, a loud, retching noise echoed. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers. Albert the cat was sitting there, looking thoroughly disgusted. Oh, please, the cat hacked. If the sexual tension gets any thicker in here, I'm going to hack up a hairball the size of a moon. Are we conquering hell today, or are we playing house? Aamon sat up, smoothing his leather armor with jagged, jerky movements. We are leaving, now. He wouldn't look at me, but as he turned to gather his sword, I saw the tips of his pointed ears. They were flushed a deep, dusky purple. I grinned despite the awkwardness. He felt it too. But as I stood up to follow him, a sharp pain lanced through my chest, right in the center of my mana core. It felt like a hook catching on a rib. I gasped, doubling over. Liam, Aamon turned instantly, the embarrassment gone, replaced by warrior focus. I'm fine, I wheezed, but then the pain doubled. It wasn't exhaustion this time, it was too much. The mana I had pulled from the storm the day before, it hadn't just refilled me, it was overflowing, it was expanding. My vision went white. I could feel the magic tearing at my veins, hot and acidic. His pathways are rupturing, Albert shrieked. The last thing I saw was Aamon rushing toward me, his face twisted in genuine fear, before the world dissolved into agonizing light. Pain was a color, and right now, it was a blinding, searing violet. I was floating in a void of fire. My body felt like it was being unmade, stitched back together, and ripped apart again. The mana I had absorbed from the storm wasn't just energy, it was raw, unfiltered chaos, and my human vessel wasn't evolved to hold it. Let go, a voice whispered in the dark, burn. No. Another voice, deeper, commanding. It cut through the fire like a blade of ice. Look at me, Liam. I forced my eyes open. I wasn't in the void. I was on the floor of the basalt cave. Aamon was straddling my waist, pinning my thrashing body to the ground. His hands were pressed flat against my chest, right over my heart. Darkness poured from his palms, not evil, but shadow. Cool, soothing, liquid shadow. It was seeping into my skin, wrapping around my burning mana pathways, reinforcing them, cooling the fever of the wild magic. Breathe, Aamon commanded, his face inches from mine. He was sweating, his teeth gritted in concentration. Push the excess into me, do it. I can't, I choked out, it'll hurt you. I am a prince of the 9 hells, he roared, his eyes glowing fiercely. I can take it, give it to me. I had no choice, the pressure was too great. I grabbed his wrists, gasping, and shoved the burning power out of my core and into his. The connection slammed into place with the force of a physical blow. It wasn't just magic transfer, it was a soul scrape. For a blinding second, I wasn't just Liam, I was Aamon. I felt his loneliness, vast and cold as the tundra. I felt the bitterness of his exile, the sting of betrayal by his brother. I felt his fear, not for himself, but that he would fail his people. And beneath it all, buried under layers of armor and ice, I felt a burning, desperate desire. A desire for connection, a desire for me. He felt me too. I saw his eyes widen as my memories flashed between us. The orphanage, the Baron's cruel indifference, the quiet nights reading about magic I was forbidden to learn, my awe of him, my attraction to him. We gasped in unison, the intimacy of it more shocking than any physical touch. The magic settled, the burning stopped, replaced by a hum of perfect resonance. My chaotic purple mana entwined with his regal black shadows, creating a spiral of energy that pulsed between our chests. Aamon collapsed forward, his forehead resting against mine. We were both panting, our hearts hammering a frantic rhythm against each other. Aamon breathed, his voice shaken. You are compatible. Yeah, I whispered, my hands still gripping his wrists. I didn't want to let go. I saw everything, Aamon. He pulled back slowly, looking down at me. The walls were down. There was no haughty prince left, just a man who had been seen, truly seen, for the first time. And you did not run, he said, sounding bewildered. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. I reached up, my hand trembling slightly, and cupped his cheek. His skin was fever-hot now. We're in this together. Aamon turned his face into my palm, pressing a kiss to the center of my hand. It was a gesture of fealty, or perhaps worship, together. The moment was shattered by a low, menacing growl from Barnaby. Aamon's head snapped up, the vulnerability vanished, replaced by the lethal sharpness of a predator. He rolled off me and was on his feet in a fluid motion, summoning his greatsword from the ether. We are not alone, Aamon hissed. I scrambled up, grabbing my staff. My body felt different now, stronger, reinforced by Aamon's shadow magic. I felt tethers connecting me to him and another to the Garzeth. Outside the cave entrance, shadows detached themselves from the rocks. Tall, spindly demons with serrated blades and masks of bone, hunters. The Usurper's elite guard, Aamon said, his voice cold. They found us. There were at least 20 of them. We were trapped in the cave mouth. Albert, I asked. I'm a cat, the feline yelled from behind a rock. I provide moral support and commentary. You two handle the stabbing. Aamon stepped in front of me, his blade glowing with dark fire. Stay behind me, Liam. I stepped up beside him, ignoring his glare. I reached out with my mind, feeling the hum of the earth, the storm above, and the massive, eager rage of the Garzeth behind us. No, I said, interlacing my fingers with Aamon's free hand. The magic flared between us, purple and black, brighter than before. We do this my way. One of the hunters stepped forward, laughing, a dry, rasping sound. The exile and his pet human. Surrender, and we will make your deaths quick. Aamon squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Barnaby, I said calmly, kill. The explosion of violence was immediate and absolute. Barnaby didn't just charge, he blurred. The Garzeth, empowered by the mana bond I shared with him, moved with a speed that defied physics. He crashed into the front line of the hunters like a battering ram made of fur and fury. Bodies flew. Attack, the lead hunter screamed, but his voice was cut short as Aamon moved. Aamon was a dancer of death. With his hand still locked in mine for a split second longer, he drew power from me, his shadow magic amplified by my arcane battery. He released my hand and surged forward, his greatsword carving arcs of midnight through the air. I didn't stand back. I slammed the butt of my staff into the ground, and a shockwave of purple gravity rippled out, knocking 3 assassins off their feet before they could reach Aamon's blind side. I didn't need incantations. I just willed it, and the magic obeyed. "Behind you," I shouted. Aamon didn't look, he trusted me. He ducked, and I sent a bolt of pure kinetic energy over his shoulder, blasting a hunter backward into the rock wall with a sickening crunch. We fought as one organism. When he stepped left, I covered his right. When I gathered mana for a blast, he shielded me with shadows until I was ready to fire. It was seamless. It was exhilarating. It was the most terrified and alive I had ever felt. The resonance between us sang. Every kill Aamon made fed energy back to me. Every spell I cast sharpened his blade. Within minutes, silence fell over the canyon entrance. The Usurper's elite guard lay broken on the stones. Barnaby sat atop a pile of 3 of them, licking blood from his paw with the air of a job well done. Aamon stood amidst the carnage, chest heaving, his sword dripping black ichor. He looked magnificent, terrifying, and regal. He turned to me, the adrenaline still wild in his eyes. He crossed the distance between us in 2 long strides. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, gripping my shoulders. He scanned me frantically for wounds. "I'm fine," I panted, grinning like a maniac. "That was effective." Aamon stared at me, his gaze dropping to my lips. The battle lust in his eyes shifted into something else entirely. The barrier that had existed between prince and human, between master and servant, had been obliterated in the fight. "You fought like a king," he said roughly. "I fought like your partner," I corrected him. Aamon let out a shuddering breath. "Liam." He didn't ask for permission this time. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the back of my neck and crashed his mouth down onto mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was hungry, desperate, and possessive. It tasted of blood and ozone and victory. I groaned, wrapping my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, deepening the kiss until I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. His tongue swept into my mouth, claiming me just as surely as he claimed his enemies. I met him stroke for stroke, the magic in our blood singing in harmony. When we finally broke apart, gasping for air, Aamon rested his forehead against mine. His hands were trembling where they gripped my waist. "My brother sits on a throne that belongs to us," Aamon whispered, the plural heavy with meaning. "He thinks I am weak. He thinks I am alone." I looked up at him, tracing the sharp line of his cheekbone. "He's wrong." Aamon smiled then, a true smile, fierce and bright and dangerous. "Yes, he is." He turned to look out over the wastes of the scar, toward the distant, smoking spires of the Iron City. "Albert," Aamon called out without looking back. The cat poked his head out from behind a particularly safe-looking boulder. "Is the testosterone fest over? Can we go?" "We are going," Aamon said, grabbing my hand and interlacing our fingers. His grip was iron-tight. "We are going to the capital." "To conquer it?" I asked, looking at the profile of the demon I was apparently falling in love with. Aamon looked at me, his eyes glowing with promise. "To take it back, and then, perhaps I will let you scratch me behind the ears." I laughed, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. "Careful, your highness, I might hold you to that." With a massive, lumbering Garzeth at our heels and a complaining cat trailing behind, we stepped out of the shadows of the cave and began the long march toward the throne. Hell didn't stand a chance.